Hello everyone, Disciple here with Hearthstone Curios. It's pretty rare to get insight into a lot of cards from an expansion that got scrapped, but luckily for us, Mike Donays, one of the devs, recently shared a bunch of cards that didn't make it into the expansion in an IGN interview. There's definitely a lot we can learn from the types of effects on cards that didn't make it in, and even more we can learn from the devs and why they said they didn't make the cut. So let's jump right in and take a look at some of the cards that almost made it into Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. First up, it's the Investigator, a 5-mana priest minion that was the initial design for Draconid Operative. Despite having lower stats than Draconid, Investigator is actually probably the better card of the two since it doesn't have the holding a dragon requirement. Blizzard didn't want Investigator to just be a staple in every single priest deck, and giving it the holding a dragon requirement let them buff its stats as well and strengthen dragon decks a little bit. And non-dragon priest honestly has enough stealing effects already with things like Thought Steal and Entomb, so overall this is probably a pretty good change that got made, and it definitely did make dragon priests a very good priest deck. But unfortunately, it also had the effect of making Dragon Priest the only priest deck, since any non-dragon priest really hasn't seen a lot of success this expansion, except for a few people experimenting with Reno. And we definitely can say that this card would have been amazing in Reno. Next up, we have Cabal Leader as a 6-mana 4/8 legendary that fired an arcane missile for each unspent mana at the end of your turn. This is a pretty sweet mechanic, and one that gives players a lot more options with what to do with their mana. Unfortunately, Cabal Leader doesn't make for the best card design, since the turn you play it, it might fire off a couple of missiles, but your opponent pretty much has to kill it the turn it comes out, or you can start putting all of your mana into missiles, save the cards in your hand, and get up to 10 random damage per turn. It'd be like a super Ragnaros and definitely hard for an opponent to potentially deal with. Still, the ability is really cool, and it was actually a considered mechanic for the Cabal in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, but since all of the unspent mana mechanics did end up getting scrapped, they ended up removing Cabal Leader as well. Moving on, let's look at Dios, a legendary 9-mana demon that shuffles more copies of itself into your deck if you have no mana left. This card is pretty sweet, and according to the devs, was probably the inspiration for Jade Idol. Now, Dios does need a reduced cost hero power or 1-mana spell to work with him so that you can go down to 9 mana and cast him to get the effect of his copies, but even if you don't make a ton of copies or figure out some way to go near infinite, a bunch of 9-mana 12/12s that help stop you from fatiguing are definitely really strong, especially more so in Wild, where something like Void Caller is legal, and Dios would have been a sweet legendary demon. Imagine playing a really early game oriented Demon Zoo deck with a lot of 1-mana minions that you can tap into and play throughout the game, and then Dios as your one late game card, which you can throw down and then throw down another 1-mana card like a Void Walker or a Flame Imp, allowing you to get even more Dios and allowing you to challenge even the strongest control deck in the late game. It would have been really cool to experiment with, but unfortunately, we don't get to see it yet. Up next, it's Endbringer, which was the original design for Cruel. Endbringer is an 8-mana 9/9 demon with the battle cry, discard your hand, summon any demons you discarded. This ability is pretty cool for discard synergies with things like Malchezaar's Imp and Silverware Golem, although you'd probably rather discard a big demon to this than the Silverware Golem. Still, that would limit the design space on the card just a little bit, since no Reno Lock player would want to dump their hand and summon demons just to get their board wiped and lose. And so the changes to make this card into Cruel were definitely good for it overall, since the type of deck that would want to play it now could afford to. Still though, it'd be cool to see what a card that makes you discard your entire hand looks like in the future, since it could have some really cool synergies, outside of Deathwing of course. Next up, let's look at Kazakus the Banished, the original design for Kazakus. Kazakus was a 7-mana 7/7 with a battle cry that activated only if you had cast 10 unique spells that game. That battle cry made him turn your hero into his dragon form, And while the devs didn't tell us exactly what it would be like, it'd probably have a really strong hero power like you get from Majordomo Executus when it dies and your hero is replaced with Ragnaros the Fire Lord. Now this is a pretty cool design for a card, but it's already pretty similar to if your deck has no duplicates effect on Reno, and so Blizzard decided to give Kazakus the same effect, and the card we know and maybe love was born. Overall, it would have been insanely hard to actually cast this card, since the earliest that you could play it is turn 11 if your deck had no duplicates and you had cast a unique spell on every single turn leading up to it. But it could have been much later, especially if you didn't draw the unique spells until a little bit later on in your game, and you can never ever rely on a card that takes you that long to be able to play. Moving on, we have Swashbuckler, the earliest design for Smalltime Buccaneer. A 1-mana 1/1 that gets +1/+1 for each attack of your weapon is pretty OP, since you could just coin fire a War Axe and then upgrade into Swashbuckler, getting a 4/3 weapon and a 5/5 on turn 2 if you started out with the coin. It does work a little bit worse with patches, since you usually want to play Swashbuckler after you already have a weapon equipped, and patches is best when you play a turn 1 pirate, but overall the card by itself would have been crazy OP enough to make the slight inefficiency totally worth it. And so it ended up getting changed and toned down into what eventually became Smalltime Buccaneer, which was still an absolutely ridiculous card. Up next, it's Sinor, the original priest legendary that was supposed to be in this set instead of Raza the Unchained. Sinor had a pretty cool effect that wasn't super out of place in Priest, and would have made for some cool games since you could try to donate bad things like Majordomo to your opponent, or maybe just steal their really good minions. Still, Blizzard did end up giving us a different minion swapping legendary in Madame Goya, which sees so much play in every deck. And Reno Priest needed a little bit of support, so Sinor ended up not getting made, and we got Raza the Unchained instead. Last but not least, let's look at Peng the Unthinkable. Peng was another possible design for the Mage Legendary, and was an 8-mana 4/8 that dealt damage to the enemy hero for each point of damage dealt to enemy minions. That's a pretty cool effect in theory, since if your opponent overextended too much, you could flame strike their board and then just kill them. Unfortunately, Peng does cost 8, so you'd probably just die before you got to do anything cool with it. The concept is definitely interesting, and it would probably be way too broken on a cheaper minion, so it does make sense to have the card be 8 mana. But it's a shame that it's just so hard to combo, since this type of effect won't ever really be good on high cost minions. You could potentially do something like Flame Strike and then Frost Nova to try and survive, and then try and cast Peng, but the chances of your opponent having that large of a board and not having killed you already are probably pretty low, and the aggressive decks that are going to kill you a little bit too soon are just going to die to any of your board clears instead of being damaged and then allowing you to use Peng as a finisher. Anyway, those are some of the cards that didn't make it into Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. I'd like to know what your favorite of them was. Anyway, that's going to be it from me. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you didn't, then that's okay too. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Peace.